Well, the justice system's importance is very clear. In the criminal area, it's where we as a community can have matters resolved in terms of finding out if people are guilty and then ultimately making a decision which takes everything that should be taken into account, and then sentencing occurs in a proper fashion. Well, the importance there is to make sure that people are accountable for their actions. It's also an important way to change the behaviour that goes on in our society when we see that those things need to be changed.
A lot of witnesses, when they come to court, are very nervous and they don't understand the court system. So we're there to provide that support, sit with them, explain the process and assist them with dealing with the prosecutor and I guess explaining what's going to happen at court.
Meet Sandy. It's not her real name, but she's helping to tell a very real story, where she's the victim of a serious crime. Sandy was assaulted by her husband. She suffered a serious injury. Police are investigating the incident.
It happened on Friday night. I was out with my girlfriends and we were drinking and smoking quite a bit. I ran out. When I came home, I asked Robbie for a cigarette and he got really mad. And he got so mad that he slept on the couch. The next morning I tried to sweeten him up with a cup of tea and I asked him for another cigarette and he got real angry. He got so angry that he dropped the tea and it spilled everywhere.
Now, what do you think you're doing?
Look what you've done!
These are my smokes.
Now I have to go clean this up.
Yeah, go and get them then. Go and get the mop and clean it up. These are my smokes, okay?
I grabbed a mop and a bucket to clean it up. He grabbed the mop and he hit me on the side of the head with it. Robbie, calm down.
No, I'm not going to calm down. Yeah, look at this.
When a crime is first committed, it's important for police to speak to the victim and the witnesses and the offender and get everyone's side of the story. Depending on victims, it can be quite painful and tough for them to relive these memories, but it's important the police get as much detail as possible about the incident.
Well, I didn't feel anything at first, and then I felt my head and I felt a cut and there was blood. And my sister was over, so she took me to the hospital. And when I was in hospital, the police came to talk to me and they said that what Robbie had done was a serious crime and that he was in big trouble.
As a result of the police investigations, Sandy's partner Robbie was arrested and charged with aggravated assault. This is a serious crime, which means it will go to the Magistrates' Court.
All right, then you go. All offenders are entitled to bail. It's a case-by-case basis. If they are admitted to bail, the protection is offered as certain conditions are imposed. They might be not to contact the victim, not to go anywhere where the victim or witnesses might be living, staying or working. And if they do breach those conditions, they'll be arrested by police and they may be held until the next court date.
Once police have arrested the offender and laid charges, the matter then goes to the prosecutors and a date is set for court.
The first thing we do is we like to get in contact with the victim to introduce ourselves, and the next thing we do is really a large part of our role is getting them comfortable and familiar with the court process, because what we're going to be doing down in court is to get the victim to tell their story to the court about what happened.
Well, when I got the letter from the justice people, I got worried. The letter said that Robbie had been charged and it had a date that I had to go to court. I got worried because I didn't want to see Robbie and I didn't want to tell strangers my story. So I wanted to have all the charges dropped.
They might tell the police they want to drop the charges, they might tell us, but what that person has to understand is that it's not up to them to drop the charge. They are not the ones that lay the charge, so to speak. The government and the justice system and the community itself have said that incidents of violence, for instance, and particularly instances of domestic violence are very serious, and they want to send a message to people that do this kind of things, that do hit people, especially in domestic context, that that if this happens, then people will be punished for it. And that's the other reason why we can't simply just drop charges.
After the police have completed their investigations and charges have been laid, it can take a while before a case is heard in court. There are things that need to be done during this time.
Well, what we do is we help the witnesses understand what's going to happen at court and explain the legal terminology. We assist the prosecutor, and we also assist with preparing a victim impact statement, and we also refer witnesses on to counselling or other support services as they require.
I really wasn't prepared for court. I didn't know what was going to happen and I felt nervous and unsure, so knowing people were there to support me really helped.
Victim impact statements tell the court how victims feel about what happened and how the crime has affected them, emotionally and physically.
A victim impact statement is a statement that is presented in court, and it's the victim writes the victim impact statement and writes down the effect of the crime on them. And basically a victim impact statement is important for the magistrate or the judge to help understand the effects of the crime on the victim.
Writing the impact statement was really helpful, and it was much easier than I thought. And it reminded me of why Robbie needed to learn from the lessons of a crime he'd done, and that he can't just go around hitting people. And it made me realise that he did really affect me and that his behaviour was just unacceptable.
Oh, hello James. James, this is Sandy.
Hi Sandy, nice to meet you. I'm James, I'm the prosecutor in this matter. We've obviously already met Colleen.
Yes.
And what we'll do now is just have a little sit down and talk about what happens in court.
The Witness Assistance Service works with the prosecutor to help victims prepare for court.
We'll go through someone's story with them, and just to make them feel more comfortable with going through the court process, because it is a bit of a strange thing for somebody to do, to tell a story about what might have happened to them in private in front of a forum of people they don't even know. To get them used to that process as well, sometimes we do role plays with them where we pretend to be the defence lawyer and suggest certain things to them that we think it's likely the defence lawyer will be suggesting to them.
Robbie's attack on Sandy was serious, and his case will go to the Magistrates Court or the Bush Court.
A lot of the witnesses will come along to court with their families or other support people, and to sit with them at court. Basically what we'll do is we'll make sure that everyone's at court with the assistance of the police. We'll make sure everyone's ready and prepared to go into court, so go over their statements with the prosecutor. Each of the witnesses have to go in one at a time, and usually they'll wait outside until the court orderly comes out and calls their name. Then they'll walk into court to give evidence.
Magistrates Court or Bush Court is a formal place with special rules that help to make it work properly and fairly. The magistrate is someone who oversees the court. They are called Your Honour. The prosecutor is the lawyer supporting the victims of crime and showing evidence to prove the accused is guilty. The people who give evidence in a court case are called witnesses. The people facing charges in court are often called the accused or the defendant. There'll be a defence lawyer helping them. They will try and get the defendant off the charges or get a reduced punishment. Some people may not be able to give evidence directly to the court. There are provisions for them to apply to the court to be a vulnerable witness.
A vulnerable witness is usually a child under the age of 18. It could be a sexual assault victim, or it could be, sometimes with Indigenous women, they talk about women's business. And in Bush courts, they'll put a screen up. In Magistrates Court, they'll either use a closed-circuit TV room, or sometimes it could be through a video link through another town or community.
The difficulty with a vulnerable witness is that you're not always going to be declared as such, and the truth of the matter is that most of the time people simply have to come to court, tell the truth, and give their evidence.
Silence all stand. Court of summary jurisdiction is now in session.
When court begins, the magistrates will ask the witnesses to take the oath or affirmation.
Yes, thank you, Ms Clark. Do you promise to tell the truth to this court? Please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Mr Tierney.
I will ask them their name for the court record. It might be a bit strange because we already know each other, but it's just for the court record. Then after that, I'll say, can you tell us about an incident that happened on this particular date at this particular time? And that's really the cue for the witness to start telling the court their story about what happened on that day. Think of it as they're kind of painting a picture about what happened to the magistrate. So I tell them to look at the magistrate when they're telling their answers, and I say, just take it slowly, one step at a time. Can you tell the court your full name?
Sandra Clark, but people call me Sandy.
And could you also tell us where you live?
I live at 21 Smith Street, Jabiru.
Could you tell us who else lives at that house?
I live there with my husband, Robert, and my son, Patrick.
Now I'm going to take you back to about 11 a.m. on the morning of the 6th of April 2013. Could you tell the court about an incident that happened at your house on that morning?
Yes, well, the night before was a Friday night, and I went out with my girlfriends. You really wonder how many times you have to keep telling your story over and over. The prosecutor is good and it feels like they're on your side, but with the defence lawyer, it can be a lot tougher, and you just have to stick up for yourself, and you can't just say yes or no for the sake of it. You really have to tell exactly what happened.
I always say to witnesses and victims, it's the defence lawyer's job to try and help their client, and so don't take it personally when they start attacking you. That does happen, but it is their job to do that. A defence lawyer it's their job to put their client's story before the court, so it's their job to put forward their client's story and to suggest that the witness isn't telling the truth, or the witness is unreliable, and the witness can't be trusted. That's what they're trying to do in court.
Well, isn't it the case, Miss Clark, that you were angry with my client because he wouldn't give you a cigarette? That's true, isn't it?
No, that's not true.
And you were yelling and screaming at him, weren't you?
No, I wasn't.
And then you've punched him in the face. That's what's happened.
No, that's Robbie telling lies.
Well, I put it to you, Miss Clark, that you're the one telling lies. What do you have to say about that?
That's not true at all.
Once all the evidence is heard, it's up to the magistrate to decide if the defendant is guilty or not guilty. If the magistrate finds the defendant guilty, they may hand down the punishment, also known as the sentence, straight away or on another day. The defendant has 28 days to appeal or fight the decision. If the magistrate finds the defendant not guilty, they'll be free to go.
It is always about whether the proof is sufficient, not just to make me suspicious or make me think, well, I think he's guilty. I have to be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's the test for the criminal law. It's an appropriate test because the end result is that once you find someone guilty of a criminal offence, the ramifications of a criminal record in itself are very significant, not to mention the ramifications of receiving a term of imprisonment. In the circumstances, I have no doubt that the offence was committed. I find Mr Clark guilty, satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that he is guilty of the charge of assaulting Sandra Clark. Stand up, please, Mr Clark.
Sandy can go back to her life now that Robbie is being punished for his crime. It's taken a lot of courage, patience and determination, but in the end she knows that it was the right thing to do.
When you go to court, just look at it as a very simple matter. Tell your story and tell the truth, and that's all you're asked to do.
But obviously it's very strange having to go and tell a bunch of other people what's happened in your life. So I'll just urge witnesses and victims to make use of the Witness Assistance Service, and please, if you've got any questions, give them a call, and also give the prosecutor a call as well. We're always very happy if people call in advance of court to talk to us. It makes our job a whole lot easier, as well as making it easier for the witness or the victim.
It can be a